So today I'm willing to go through another article, another TED's ideas.ted.com article, which is called or titled "Humans Are Made to Be Touched, So What Happens When We Aren't?" by Mary Heltner from March 22nd, 2021. So it is a fairly new article and definitely very interesting because I think that, it is the truth. I mean, if you think about the fact that there are certain hormones being released when we touch other people or when we are being touched, and so on and so forth, and just a trillion probably different things happening when this is happening, it's very interesting, and there must be something about that. So let's see. Our bodies are designed to respond to touch and not just to sense the environment around us. We actually have a network of dedicated nerve fibers in our skin that detect and emotionally respond to the touch of another person, affirming our relationships, our social connections, and even our sense of self. So what happens when we don't receive that? This was one of the first questions that neuroscientist Helena Wasling, PhD, considered when social distancing restrictions were introduced to curb the spread of COVID-19. Based at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden, she has studied these nerves, known as C-tactile or CT efferents, and their importance to our emotions for over a decade. And there is a quote: "What struck me very early on, in the first week of being told that we were restricted from touch, was that people no longer knew how to behave," she says. And I think, by the way, this is actually, really the case. Even if you don't consider yourself to be a tactile person, touch is or was embedded in the social structure of our lives. From meeting a new colleague and evaluating their handshake to giving a friend a long hug when we haven't seen them in a while, it is one of the fundamental ways we have all learned to relate to one another. To take it away is a very big intervention, says Wasling. New York-based psychologist Guy Winch, PhD, agrees. Touch is something we associate with emotional closeness, and we associate the absence of it with emotional distance. We may not fully appreciate it, but in pre-pandemic life there were literally dozens of small moments of touch throughout the day. Probably willing and unwilling. I mean, there's always going to be some touch that you were not seeking quite. But this is significant, not just in the landscape of our minds, but that of our bodies. Being emotionally and socially responsive to touch is so biologically fundamental to us that CT efferents are present over almost every inch of our skin, absent only from the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet, which is very interesting. Why the palms? I mean, I understand the feet, but why the palms? These nerves are, Wasling explains in her TEDx Göteborg talk, particularly attuned to three things: a light touch, a gentle moving, and around 32 degrees Celsius, which is 89 Fahrenheit, which just happens to be human skin temperature. So they are programmed to be most responsive to a gentle caress from another person. And I mean, it also makes sense if you think about it. But it is incredible to see that, this is just so exactly other people. Gentle touch, or light touch, gentle moving, and 32 fucking degrees Celsius. This is insane if you think about it. Rather than simply telling our brains that this touch has happened, this is the role of other receptors in the skin that help the primary somatosensory cortex to process physical sensations. CT efferents instead send signals to the insular cortex. This is a deeper part of the cortex that deals with your emotional equilibrium, explains Wasling. So you will get kind of vague sensation. In the best of cases, it will be that was nice. I'm accepted. I feel safer now. Someone is counting on me. CT efferents also have pathways to part of the brains that deal with who you are socially. For people who have now been living without the connection for a long time, it can be incredibly difficult, says Winch. I have friends and patients that I work with who have not been touched in a year at all, not a handshake, and they are really suffering for it. There's something that feels very distancing and call about not having any kind of option for an embrace, and that can leave long-lasting scars. Hugs, the form of touch we probably all miss the most, are particularly important and emotionally nourishing, says Winch. When someone's caring and we hold them, we are doing it to comfort. We're doing it to comfort, but what it allows them to do is cry more. People usually will hold it together until someone puts an arm around them, and then they'll break down because that hug represents security and safety, and because of the closeness we feel when we know and trust that person. Moreover, the benefit of touch that we are missing out on are not just emotional and social, but also physical. It can reduce pain and stress, as well as giving us a general feeling of well-being. These are the areas, says Wasling, where we may be able to support ourselves when we need to go for a prolonged periods without social touch. Here are some of the ways that we can ease the difficulty of living without the closeness, both for ourselves and the people in our lives. Take a shower or have a warm bath. Although it doesn't elicit quite the same physiological response as interpersonal touch, Wasling says the slow movement of the water on our skin is likely to generate a CT afferent response. Having a warm bath also relaxes your muscles, which can help to alleviate tension. Cuddle a pet or ask to walk someone else. Or ask to walk someone else's. I'm sorry, not someone else. Just being close to a furry animal has been shown to lower your stress, reduce your heart rate and your blood pressure, says Wasling. You also have a social relationship with your pets. They rely on you and you need to show up for them. There has been a noted increase in people adopting pets during the pandemic, and at least one study has identified the potential therapeutic benefit of human-animal relationships when we are denied our normal level of human social interaction. If you're able to see anyone in person, be wholly present, even if you can't touch. When we remove touch from our social interactions, we should consider what else we can emphasize instead. Maybe we could be better at looking at each other in the eyes if we do have physical meetings, suggests Wasling. We can make sure that we see each other because touching a person is a way of saying that I see you, I acknowledge your existence. Don't be afraid to have deeper, more meaningful conversations when you really listen, especially if you know someone might be isolated or lonely. Where these interactions don't activate the same touch-based neural pathways, they still stimulate our social sense of belonging and intimacy, says Winch. Or says. Don't just check in on people who are alone, connect with them meaningfully. It feels like everyone from our employers to the Twitter sphere to US Vice President Kamala Harris is reminding us to check in on our single friends. But are we going the right way about it? When we say check in, that's like a jackbox. Tick, done, says Winch. But that really isn't enough. While the boredom and frustration of lockdowns are similar experiences for everyone, being isolated from the regular physical closeness of friends and family is uniquely difficult for people who are alone. The elderly, those who live by themselves, and those who are in high-risk categories and cannot chance even one hug. If you just check in, that is not going to be sufficient. You should be talking for at least 15 to 20 minutes for that to be a meaningful conversation. You have to really connect, says Winch. If you're both feeling Zoom fatigue, try each taking a walk while you talk on the phone. If your friends have described feeling ghostly or unreal, do your best to appreciate that the absence of touch has been a significant emotional loss for them during this time, one that you may never fully understand. Try not to say, I know how you feel, if you're not in the same position. You know that when you touch things, you're real to you, says Wasling. One of the ways why I think touch is so important is that it makes you convinced you have a place in the social world of other people. As we look towards a vaccinated future, it is difficult to know right now how the pandemic will change our social attitudes towards touch in the long term. And I do, by the way, think that there is definitely going to be some changes or long-term changes when it comes to physical interaction or in general interaction with other people. I do think that it is going to take us a bit of time to get used to not touching each other and keeping a distance from each and another after the pandemic, or once the pandemic kind of quote unquote reduced itself, if you want to call it like that. But I do think that it is going to be strange at first. I, on one hand, think that we're going to get used to it quite quickly again, and then we get to like it. Maybe it's actually going to be kind of excessive as well. Maybe then there is some sort of a okay, I'm gonna hug and touch everyone thing going on. Could also be the case, who knows. Will we still shake hands, hug colleagues? A UK study conducted from January to March 2020, mostly before lockdown measures were introduced, found that 54% of people already felt that they had too little touch in their lives. So we may well want this aspect of our lives to return as soon as possible. But one fact or facet that worries Winch is how the pandemic has actually shaped or reshaped our relationship with touch. We took the thing that represents something so close, intimate, and important, and now it represents something that's actually dangerous and you should avoid. Even if we don't fully register it, we are going to feel surges of anxiety at the idea of getting a hug. It's going to take a while to bring us down from the danger alert of touch. Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to be a bit of time. Well, even though I don't necessarily think that it's going to be so long, I think that we're going to get used to it fairly quickly again. Yeah, we tend to forget things quite quickly, I would say, whatever it is, whether it is war or other things that have been repeated throughout history. We tend to forget things fairly quickly. Sometimes it's a bit scary how quickly we forget about things. And yeah. With that being said, I do hope that I've been able to share some things of importance with you and give you some ideas and some interesting thoughts you could be having in mind or you could share with other people as well. Please stay safe, have a good life, enjoy your time, and I'm going to see you the next time. So bye-bye.